Hey everyone, it's Norm Farrar, aka the Beard Guy here, and welcome to another Lunch with Norm, the rise of the micro brands.
Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm. Lunch with Norm. Lunch
Okay, so today we have a returning guest from Noviland's Francois Jaffres, and we're going to be talking about the world of sourcing, what's happening, things that are happening logistic-wise, crazy freight costs that are happening. But before we get into that, we're just going to bring in Kels.
Hello,
Hello,
happy
Mr.
Monday.
Kelsey.
Hello.
Yes.
So we are trying to make this a shorter intro today because we did a little thing on our Facebook group and you guys wanted a short intro. So we'll just try and hit the main points. So such as join our Facebook group, Lunch with Norm, Amazon FBA, and eCommerce Collective. I'll put the link in the comments. And if you're missing parts of the episode, you can always find us on the YouTube channel. It's Norman Farrar, but again, put all the comments, all the links, all the good stuff in the comment section. And welcome, Marcia. Happy February 1st. Dr. Cause, welcome from Los Angeles. Mark, hey, oh, it's cold. It's very cold here.
Yeah, it's right
Simon,
here.
welcome. And Lisa, nice to see you guys all. We do have a prize today. It's going to be a pretty nice one. It's an hour consultation with Francois for supply chain. So he'll fill you in on more of the details. But yeah, it looks like we got even more people. We got Faye and Facebook user and Yakov. Wow, got lots of people coming. All right, so let's jump right into it. Unless there's anything else, Norm.
Okay, no, I think that's it. One thing, if you do have any questions, just put them over to the comment section. We'll try our best to get to them. If we don't, we'll try to get to it after the podcast. But for now, let's sit back, relax, grab a cup of coffee, and enjoy the podcast. Hey, stranger.
Hey, Norm. How's it going?
Good. How's it going over there?
Can't complain. It's a little cold, but it's not Pittsburgh cold. I'm in Atlanta right now, so I can't complain that much.
Oh, man. Yeah, up here it's a little bit different than that. It's very, very cold. But anyways, so for people who don't know who you are or the company, can you give us just a very brief background?
Yes. So my name is Francois Jaffres. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Noviland, and we are an end-to-end sourcing supply chain management solution. Really, we centralize everything in this one platform where you could go from sourcing, logistics, QC, production oversight, the entire process essentially all in one platform. So that's just a quick 10-second intro. I think that should do it.
All right, very good. So the big question, and so there's so many people that are upset at what's going on right now. And the big question are why these shipping rates going through the roof? I haven't seen them this high in a long time, but what's going on?
Yeah, and we heard from some of our shipping partners that this is the highest they've seen it in almost 2 decades. In some instances,
I haven't seen it this high. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, there's new solutions as opposed to what there was, a decade ago even. So things like expedited shipping or expedited ocean freight, it's a lot more popular now.
Yeah.
With more people locking in more annual contracts, which we just got one quote back from that we quite literally laughed at. It was in the 8,000s for a 20-foot container coming to the East Coast.
A 20-foot container.
20-foot container. And so we said, okay, we'll just work with a few of our other shipping partners for these instances. But yeah, no, it's really bad now more than ever. One, because we're right before Chinese New Year, right? And some can argue we are actually launching Chinese New Year starting February 1st, realistically.
Yeah.
It's supposed to start February 12th, but starting now. There's a container shortage. There is a backlog of production all the way tracking back to 2020 even. And companies are just trying to navigate these risks and mitigate them as much as possible by placing larger production orders, let's say back in December, November, where, I think yourself as well as Noviland was telling everyone, hey, you have to place your orders now, otherwise they are not going to get taken.
Oh, Francois, and this doesn't go back a month ago or even 2 months ago. We were letting people know that because of what's happening right now, we saw a completely different shift that was going on, and even a 3 or 4 month back saying, hey, put in your order, something is happening, like, and it extended from COVID, manufacturing was backed up, the shipping backup was going to happen, getting it into port was going to be a problem, and it all came true.
It did. It did. I think actually last time I joined you, we talked about it. That was several months back. Even before that, 6 months ago, we started talking about it. I think the first time I started talking about it was in June with Megla. And she was saying it's a little early, and there's no way that is too early to actually start planning for it. So it's when it comes to logistics, it's something where no one is for certain going to be able to tell you, hey, right after Chinese New Year, right after all that backlog clears off, the prices are going to start to go down. There's absolutely no guarantee. Any freight forwarder that says otherwise, to be frank, is a damn liar. No one can actually predict that.
Not just a liar.
Yeah. they're coercing you into something that you probably shouldn't be involved with. That's more the case. They might say, hey, we'll lock in some rates for February, or they might try to go off of rates from last year around end of February. Not going to happen. This can go for 1 month. This could go for the next 6 months. We have no idea. The container shortages, the ports being closed down, the inland ports in China, the lack of truckers. Another serious thing I really do want everyone to realize, that this is unprecedented times, right? China is restricting a lot of their workers, and these are millions of workers, from traveling back to their families in mostly rural areas. But also they're implementing these restrictions on travel into major cities. They're having 2-week quarantine times, an extra, COVID test every 7 days that most workers have to finance themselves. So they're making this almost impossible or just non-feasible to travel back home for Chinese New Year. What we're going to have to realize is that post-Chinese New Year, there might be something else that happens, right? That might mean that workers are going to wait, and they are going to shelter in place, and they're not going to travel back, and they may travel back after Chinese New Year. They may have started leaving 2 weeks ago and don't plan to travel back because of all these new risks that are involved with traveling to factories, right? And in some cases, it's, sort of their perspective is, we come to work for months at a time without seeing our families for, let's say 6 to 10 months, and work these 9-9-6 shifts from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days a week, with the hopes of going back and spending the time with the family during Chinese New Year. Now that's taken away, right? So we're going to have to see, it's going to have to be a real-time insight into the market as we go into February, even as we go into March. How are factories going to be reacting to Chinese New Year, and how are the workers going to be reacting, more importantly, I think?
Yeah, in our Centurion group, it was last week, Keon was on from Sourcing with Keon, and he was saying that, I've never heard of this before, but he was saying that factories are actually having their workers run through Chinese New Year just to try to catch up. That just doesn't happen usually.
It doesn't.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen, but one of the things that I've been looking at, I've been talking about, is not only trying to figure out your logistics and your lead time, but it's that inventory management, working with going, it's crazy right now, but afterwards, okay, hindsight would have been awesome. But going forward is, working with your manufacturer, negotiating with your manufacturer, working with that strategy that we've been talking about, because that strategy worked. And that is, when you put in an order, let's say it's for 1,000 units, your normal order would be 500 units going to your warehouse or your 3PL. The other 500 would be going over to Amazon. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
You set up your inventory alert at whatever it would be to get the other 500 moved over. Once that's done, now this is the trick. You already have discussed another 1,000 units to be stored by your Chinese warehouse, your manufacturer. So when you put in that initial 1,000, you're actually putting in an order for 2,000 units. And then you cut the deal with the manufacturer to have those 1,000 on the floor. We have negotiated zero cost. we've negotiated 20% deposit, 30% deposit, but just, trying to put something down. And I was surprised. We actually got zero cost and 90-day terms in this one client. But anyways, by that happening, you can kind of manage what's going on because you'd already have your inventory in place. Imagine, being late to the game last month and trying to put it into production. It wouldn't have happened. This way, production's already there. It could either get on the water, or you could go high-speed vessel or air, or a combination of all three if you needed. But let's say you needed a combination. You could get that out of the gate really quickly while it automatically went into production. So now you've got this perpetual system that's working. That works. It works. If anything, you might be a little bit light because your forecasting is off, but at least you're getting it over. And if you do this properly, it's all about the turning over. I was talking to Todd Snively. He came on again with Centurion last week. He was talking about the reason he likes Amazon Wholesale is the amount of turnover you can have. Well, that's the same here. If you order a lot of inventory so you can bring it into Amazon all at one crack, and you do that twice a year, this way you could do it 4, 5, 6 times a year, and you don't have to worry about it. And especially what's happening right now. So anyways, I don't know if you have anything more to say about that or that type of system, but I know it's saved a lot of our clients' butts, during this issue right now. But even getting it over to port, it's that backup at the port to get it onto the truck.
Right. It's so 100% agree with your system. You should always, we have this little acronym, the 3 W's. The working water warehousing. You should always have inventory in your warehouse. You should always have inventory being shipped over, so on the water. You should always have products in production working. So that's something that we like to try to keep in mind every time that we're talking to any of our users or customers. So I 100% agree with that. But the challenge with that, I think, for a lot of businesses or a lot of sellers is that they may not have that working relationship with their supplier, or they may not just be large enough to actually establish a relationship like that. Or they come at it from a different angle of sort of this expectation from the supplier rather than seeing it as, hey, the supplier is doing me a favor. I should also do them a favor by offering, to pay some sort of payment. And that whether that's a 20%, if I want to progress to a 90-day net term, then I should probably increase my orders, gradually every time. And anytime I make a prediction or a forecast, I should be accurate. It shouldn't stay at 500 units every time if you're expecting to grow with the supplier and show them that you're valuable and that you could work on those net terms and you could turn around that product quickly. So I think there's just a little bit more that goes into working out those relationships. And I think that's what a lot of sellers need to prioritize over the transaction, over the, hey, let's get this 5% reduction. It should be, hey, let me try to get those net 30 terms, or, for the 70% remaining payment, maybe I could get net 15. That just improves my cash flow. I can do more with my business, maybe spend a little bit more on PPC, get more inventory out of FBA that reduces my carrying costs, and now I have more money to actually put into inventory. So there's a lot of approaches I think that could be taken into how you manage your supply chain.
Now let's talk about the domino effect with the lead times. First of all, what kind of lead, if somebody's going to place their order today, what are you seeing for lead times? And I know it's very rough depending on the manufacturer, but what are you looking at? So I go in right now, I place an order. What am I expecting?
Well, I think it all depends. And you just like you said, it's going to be dependent on the manufacturer, on the relationship you have with that manufacturer, the size of your order, the complexity of your product. If we're talking about, let's say, card inserts, you should be able to get those done within just a few days. Whereas if you're talking about some sort of electronic, that may be a 30 or 40-day lead time traditionally, not because it takes 30 or 40 days to produce, but just because of that production queue behind it. And so when you're going into these domino effects, they're still catching up from orders from 2020 in some cases. So the smaller orders tend to be on the back end, and those tend to just keep increasing with lead time. If they promised you 30 to 40, maybe on the 60 to 90 day now. That's what we've seen from a few of the factories in our network. We try to keep those lead times as limited as possible. So if we're saying it's going to be done within 25 to 35 days, we push our factories by incentivizing them, by bringing them more business, or by helping them logistically on the China side to help stay within those 25 to 35 day lead times. But right now, if you're placing an order today, February 1st, don't expect them to pick up that order, I would say, until after Chinese New Year. And that's just to set the right expectations, right? If you're a large customer and you're asking them to do you a favor, and again, you've proven yourself that you could grow and you have grown with them, you've always paid on time, maybe paid early, whoever your representative is, maybe you've sent them gifts during Chinese New Year in the past. This money that they receive now is something that's going to hold them over ultimately until after Chinese New Year. So it would be in their best interest to do that. New customers, fully customized products, you might be coming to them for even a request for a quote or an RFQ. You might not be able to get a quote from them just because they're so backed up. So I would say not to expect anything if you're placing an order today to start production until after Chinese New Year, late February, maybe even early March. And then I would say at least a 30 to 50 day buffer on that. So that's why, when we were talking about this back in June, we were saying plan out your forecast until next May, till next summer really. And it's hard to do when you're a new seller, but it's something that has to be established early on, has to be part of your business model.
Yeah, lead times we're showing right now to land May, June.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
that's about right. May, definitely at least May, if you're placing an order
May.
now.
Yeah.
Likely June, just
Yeah.
depending on if they're receiving those containers back. How quickly can they get workers back in those manufacturing facilities? How quickly can truckers actually get those products from a feeder port into, let's say Ningbo or Shenzhen, or any of those major ports for export?
Yeah, I've seen some interesting pictures where it's just lined up, probably for days. I don't know, but they're just, the trucks are lined up.
Yeah, I guess to put it into perspective, we've had a few containers that were supposed to be shipped out February 1st, and due to their final destination was supposed to be Long Beach, or the port of entry into the U.S. supposed to be Long Beach. Long Beach had that 10% foreman workforce outbreak of COVID. And that was a weird way of saying it, but they had that COVID outbreak there, right? So now all the containers that we're supposed to receive there, those are all backed up. China had to delay that by about 4 days. So they're expected to leave February 5th now, whereas they're supposed to be leaving today. We'll see how that goes. This is nothing to do with the manufacturing not being done on time or anything like that. This is literally just from the ports being so backed up that they can't take new containers. So vessels are just sitting there on the water. And don't get me wrong, these shipping carriers are losing millions and millions and millions of dollars. To sort of put that into the supply and demand sector, they are going to charge those ridiculous rates, and they're going to continue implementing GRIs, or general rate increases, to the freight forwarders and to their shipping partners to hold them over, because they have to survive this in order for the entire supply chain to work.
Yeah, we've, again, just experience that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. We've seen it go, we had, I feel sorry, she's probably listening, for this one client, but it started out 3 times higher than it should have been. Then it went higher than that. And then there was a manufacturing delay. And when we finally got the quote to her, it was 7 times what we originally quoted. It was,
But that's there's nothing you could do about it.
there's
That's the
nothing you can
unfortunate-
do.
I mean, the alternative option to that is to do absolutely nothing, don't source it, wait until some of this blows over.
Yeah.
I mean, that is, I think, the only other option. You can look into other countries. You're going to spend time looking into other countries. You're going to have to learn their infrastructures. You're going to have to see how logistics is impacted from those countries into the importing country also. I mean, supply chain is extremely volatile right now, more than ever, more than I've seen it in the past 5 years, even when the trade war started, back in 2018, even more volatile than that. So I guess that's just to put things into perspective, that no supplier, I think, right now is necessarily trying to screw you over. I think everyone is just trying to navigate the waters and react as quickly as possible. So staying nimble is important.
Yeah. And everybody's in the same boat too. So
Everyone.
you'll probably see price increases going up on Amazon. Okay, so is it worth going to the East Coast rather than to the West Coast?
In some cases, yes. So if speed isn't a top priority for you, then realistically, I would say you can go either one because you have no idea how long it's actually going to take to clear through the West Coast as opposed to the East Coast. We've seen a lot of success with having our customers actually import through the East Coast, and in some instances, it is even more cost effective than importing into the West Coast, just because of the lanes that they're taking, and if it's an LCL container specifically, it tends to be a bit more cost effective. And clearing the ports, that's another thing. So if you're trying to go to Long Beach, it's almost impossible to get any guaranteed estimates, whereas going into the East Coast, you don't have to worry about the railroads. You don't have to worry about that last mile of trucking necessarily from the West Coast. Don't get me wrong, the warehouses are overwhelmed on the West Coast. So all of the warehouses that actually receive those products, deconsolidate, and then ship them out with different truckers, they're overwhelmed right now. So I would say going to the East Coast is actually a better option. I would say for at least the next month, maybe 2 months, than going to the West Coast until they catch up.
I agree. Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. All right, Kelsey. Oh, before we bring in Kelsey, I think Kelsey can come in. Here we go. He's part of the action. There we go. All I was going to say is before we were going to ask any questions, I was just going to just first of all, welcome everybody who's just joining, and to remind people if they could hit that like button or smash it or whatever you want to do with it, ring a bell, all that stuff that Kelsey will tell you to do, subscribe. But if you could do that, that would be fantastic. That definitely helps out the show. Any questions or engagement that you could provide, that would be awesome. And Kelsey, do we have any questions?
We do, but first, Francois, do you want to talk about your consultation?
Yes, and I meant to do it at the beginning, and I kind of got carried away with myself.
I cut you off, that's why.
So it's an hour-long consultation, anything supply chain. So that's whether you are planning on launching a product and you just want help or some guidance with your RFQ. That way you're set up for sourcing success. And you might not reach out to them until after Chinese New Year, but we can get everything set up now. I'd be more than glad to talk about molding and tooling expectations. A lot of times, just on the first conversations that I have with some users, they might come in with $2,000 purchasing budget, but they have a fully customized product. They have everything drawn out. They have no idea that the molding itself is going to cost $5,000 to $10,000. So I want to make sure I set the right expectations in supply chain, as well as just review how your supply chain is currently looking, if there's any better alternatives, any problems or struggles you're currently encountering. Maybe Norm can chime in, or I could reach out to him for some insights also. But yeah, that's an hour-long consultation. If it goes a little bit over, it goes a little bit over. Perfectly fine also.
Okay, fantastic. And how do we get our any of the listeners to get into that one?
So to do that, all you need to do is put the hashtag #WeLoveFrancois into the comments. And yeah, that should get it started. So let's see, we have Rad posting one already. So yeah, keep them coming. And we do have a question. Just a second.
Now we kind of awkward silence for a second.
Sorry. Okay, we're here. So we have one question from Simon.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you predict the bottleneck to last? Will rates come back this year?
So if I understand the question correctly, it's kind of like what we just addressed. It's going to be almost impossible to predict. But in regards to the logistics bottleneck, I think at least for the next month or two, this is going to be a similar story where it's going to be backed up. During Chinese New Year, there isn't going to be as much output in production from the manufacturers. So we're hoping that these ports are going to be able to I guess, decongest from these containers and get them back to China. But then we're also going to see a huge surge right after Chinese New Year where everything that was left over in those ports, because remember the ports also shut down during Chinese New Year for a short while, anything that was in those ports, those still need to be moved. if factories are actually producing through Chinese New Year, and if anyone is, staying true to that, and workers are not leaving their towns, then we may still see some production, continue going. And in those cases, we're going to have to see truckers. We're going to have to see feeder ports being able to transport those items to the major ports. So, the bottleneck, I would be a hypocrite if I said I could predict exactly how long it's going to last. I would just suggest, smash that like button with Lunch with Norm, and hopefully you'll have me back on in a few months and we could talk about it again. But if not, definitely follow these different logistics companies and different sourcing companies. Norm, I know you have a tremendous sourcing company also that I'm sure is giving out some great insights to its customers and users. I think just getting as much feedback and Googling it daily, seeing how these COVID outbreaks are actually being responded to by China is important. And it's important to realize that you own your own supply chain, and you should be the most informed there. So gathering insights every day, I would highly recommend that. And I'm sorry, I can't directly answer the question of, how long will this bottleneck exactly last?
Yeah, fingers crossed that it's, I'm hoping a couple of months after Chinese New Year's, we're going to start to see the prices decrease. But that's a prediction.
Yeah. We'll see how that holds over. I guess we can say both of them and then clip the one that's right. And then put out the one that's right.
Yeah, there we go. We'll show that we're bang on.
Exactly.
All right. This is from Faye. Talking about Chinese New Year's, is there such a service as a company in China that would deliver gifts to my manufacturers? Is there some sort of gift delivery system?
Norm, do you have any insights on this?
I don't have. What I can tell you is that I probably talked to Alpha Lobby and we would arrange some sort of delivery service. But going back and talking about gifting, Keon and Tim were just talking about this, but whether to gift or not to gift, and I like building relationships with my client or with my manufacturer. And I was just going to ask you, by the way, what are your thoughts if I have a really good relationship with my manufacturer? Again, it's about paying on time. It's just not, being a nice person. It's making sure that they feel comfortable with you. Having that relationship, can that work its way if you needed the favor? Do you think the manufacturer right now would go, yeah, I'll push this guy to the front?
That's actually exactly what the relationship is going to help do. If you treat everything transactional, you're going to go into a transactional queue, right? Where it's just, okay, these are the top orders, and the top orders are 10,000 and above, and the middle 50% of the orders are between 5 and 10,000 US dollars. And they might break it up in different ways or prioritize it in different ways, but relationships are always number one. They'll always say, hey, this guy has stuck true to me. We've worked through not only the good times, but also the bad times, right? On the first order, you might have some defects. How do you respond to those defects? Do you just point the finger and say, hey, this is on you. I told you to do this. You have to fix this. Or is it, hey, how can we improve on this for the next order? And they'll see that as, okay, this is a building block. And they want to continue working with me. I understand I screwed up. Now, what can I do to fix this with them and improve this relationship? I think it's just as important to have those conversations as it is to have the conversations where, yes, that production run was amazing. Thank you for getting it done on time. Thank you for getting it delivered early. I think both of those conversations are very, very, very important. And if you have those conversations, when you get into a time like this, where, in about a week and a half, everyone should be gone already from the factories, they will push your order up. They will say, okay, this isn't the biggest order, but they've been a loyal customer.
Right.
And I want to keep them after Chinese New Year.
Yeah. And there's something else that you can do as well. You might want to think about it. It could affect your cash flow. But if you pay, you said it a little bit earlier about paying early. So you could always ask your manufacturer, if you paid early, can you get a discount? So a 2% discount paying early. And most likely they'll take that discount, or you can take that discount, take advantage of it. Now, paying early, what does that mean? Now you have to pay up front a bit, quicker, or, does that affect your 60-day terms or your 30-day terms? But one way or the other, if you have 30-day terms and you can say you'll pay early and you can take a 2% on that, it's well worth it. And they appreciate it too. All of a sudden you became, like, we have premium suppliers, they have premium customers.
Right. Now, the only time that I wouldn't recommend paying early is if it's a brand new supplier and you haven't vetted them enough, which a lot of times is the case. A lot of times when I'm working with any of our users, their only experience is from getting some quotes on Alibaba and never actually placing an order. Now, just keep in mind that if you're working with someone on any marketplace and you don't have boots on the ground to actually validate them or anything like that, then that is a risky move. Even if they were to offer you 5% cheaper, that is a risk that you have to assess. They could be an actual trade agency, just be taking the money, running. That is a case. Another case is they could be completely honest. They could very much have every intention to manufacture this after Chinese New Year. But right after Chinese New Year, factory management decides to go in a different direction. Maybe they don't want to produce these types of mugs anymore. They want to pivot to something that just has more of a demand. And then you have to struggle with getting your money back. Or it could be everything goes perfectly smooth and you do get that discount. So there's, you have to think about every scenario in that place. When you have a relationship with them, when you've been working with them for a long time, again, you've been through the good times and the bad times. You have multiple points of contact at that manufacturer, not just the sales rep, but also, if you could get someone else, maybe her manager or his manager, and maybe some factory worker or the QC inspector, then that's something that you may want to consider, placing those orders early, getting that discount.
Yeah, and I didn't mean pay everything ASAP up front. I was talking more like if they say you've got 45 days, you pay earlier than 45 days or 30 days. And also, just what you were just talking about, factory audits are awesome. You got
to...
expensive, but they're worth it. I know over at Honu, people ask us why we have that upfront fee. The reason is it costs us. It costs us to travel. It costs us to audit. The other thing is inspections. We talked just the other day. We had a podcast strictly about inspections. That's so important. And to do for us, anyways, is an independent. It goes through our company, but it's an independent service that we have that we'll work with, so that we could help protect the client. We don't want, and this happened last week, by the way. So this just happened. We had that podcast last week on Friday, and all of a sudden, somewhere during the week, somebody said, Facebook messaged me and said, "Oh, I had a inspection through my manufacturer," and the horror story began. So it came in, it was horrible. It should never have passed the inspection. The inspector was taking a bribe. It went through, they lost their money.
Yeah, I mean, every part of this international business is, there's going to be risk involved, right? And that's why, you have that upfront auditing fee. That's why our team has to actually go out and visit the factories and understand factory management, not just a single point of contact. Because although everyone wants to sort of just trust that a certification or that, let's say they're actually FDA compliant and they're not just photoshopping their name on top, as much as everyone wants to believe that that's, the reality and everything's dandelions, that's not actually the reality whatsoever. And it's all about navigating those waters. And just like you have your team, we have our team. I believe I did watch part of that QC.
I saw you snooping around it.
Yeah, I joined for a while, as long as I could. There were some great insights. I highly recommend to go back and watch that. From what I was listening to, it was a great episode. But I mean, QC, factory audits, these are two things that you never want to skip. These are two things that should not be seen as losses. They should be seen as investments. And it's, if you receive those, 5,000, let's say 500 products, right? Just 500 products to begin with. It's a $5,000 order, and you skip QC or you have your supplier self-inspect. Is what I hear a lot of times. You just paid, let's say, $1,000 for shipping. Now it's in Australia or in the U.S., and now you're paying the carrying cost of warehousing that product. You're paying for the negative reviews that you're receiving. You're paying for the removal order. You're paying for the capital that you just lost in that entire order. How are you going to finance your next order? So there's so much risk involved with that if you don't perform that, let's say $150 to $300 QC inspection, you have a lot more to lose than you have to gain. That's just an investment.
Yeah. It's not expensive, but I want to say that most is such a huge improvement. When I started going to China or Taiwan 25 years ago, a lot of difference between now and then. China, in my eyes, is completely different. They're trying to work with you. They're trying. One of the keys, even now, you got to let them know that you want quality, because they still think that the North American market, Westerners, want the cheapest, and they'll provide you the cheapest. But if you tell them, that you need quality, you're looking to, and you lay it all out, that's great. They'll provide that, but they need that direction too, because they're used to more sellers coming to them and wanting the lowest price. And that's the other thing too. I'm going off topic for a bit. We're talking logistics right now, but if you want lowest price, whether it's your logistics person or if it's the manufacturer, whatever you're doing, you get what you pay for.
Yes. I 100% agree with that.
Quality, time, money. Take two, or cheapest. Take two out of the three. You'll never get all three.
I 100% agree. And that's actually why we never go with the cheapest shipping partner that we can get. We deny a lot of the factories that give us the cheapest quotes. We reject a lot of RFQs that say, just give me the cheapest price, because that's not actually what they want. We find out, hey, this project is now going to take 6 weeks because everything that this was based on was on the cheapest price. Cheapest price means the cheapest materials, means the cheapest manufacturing processes, means the cheapest workers typically that can work on that project, means longer lead times, means more down the road costs. So when it comes to logistics, and we can apply it directly to logistics, we can talk about accessorial charges, right? So typically when you're quoted from a freight forwarder, they may say, hey, this should take about 1 day to clear the port, and then we might store it in a truck yard for 1 day, and then you have a 1 hour unload time. Well, this is a floor loaded container, and the ports are backed up right now, and in order for the warehouse to receive it, we have to pre-pull this. Why didn't you plan all this out ahead of time? So now you're talking about $150 pre-pull that you were not expecting, because this was just the cheapest quote that you had. It is not going to take 1 hour to unload. It's actually has to be a drop off. So now you're talking about a $250 charge for that one container to be dropped off. You're asking your warehouse to make sure that there's absolutely no delays, nothing can go wrong. Otherwise, you're going to be charged every day that it's sitting in that truck yard. So that could go from $50 to $250. And these are not charges that the warehousing is charging you. These are charges that your freight forwarder failed to charge you or let you know of ahead of time, right? It's not something that's completely unexpected to them. It's just poor management on their side. Hidden fees. And I see it all the time. And so sometimes, when we are a little bit more expensive, it's not because we're trying to make more money than anyone else. It's all about the service that you can actually provide. Hey, this includes storing it at the truck yard for 2 or 3 days, and the pre-pull chassis, and making sure that it gets delivered at X hours, and we're actually coordinating with the warehouse manager, not just emailing them the day of, because we've seen that a ton with our warehouse also. So we know what the good freight forwarders do, and we know what the poor freight forwarders do. And if you go cheap, you're always going to get those poor freight forwarders. Those are the ones that have the worst relationships with their truckers, because they're always trying to negotiate a cheaper rate with them. They have poor relationships with the warehouses that they ship to. So they're always trying to get it last minute in, miscoordinating. We've received containers that had different container numbers on them also from someone that's handling their own freight forwarding. And we just asked them, well, why is this happening all the time? They say, well, they have the cheapest rates. I'm like, yeah, but you just paid $10,000 in accessorial charges over the last month. Is it actually the cheapest rate? So these are important aspects to realize that down the road charges can add up to be more expensive than the extra $200-300 that you're spending on a better service for logistics.
What about, do you recommend sellers to get insurance?
Yeah, and so freight forwarders should know this. Most freight forwarders, and again, this is going back to the cheaper rather than maybe a little bit pricier. Someone that's a little bit pricier, they tend to include that already up front. They tend to include that on behalf of the importer of record to make sure that insurance is taken care of, because they have insurance agreements with the shipping carriers.
Right.
And so the way that it would work is that if you don't have insurance with the freight forwarder says, hey, sucks that happened. Here's the shipping carrier's information. You could file it yourself. Entire process, you're not going to see that money for months at least. You get insurance with a freight forwarder. Freight forwarder says, okay, we have all the paperwork. We know the exact invoice value. This is the vessel that it was supposed to be on. This is when it was loaded. This is how it was loaded. These are our containers. These are other products that were with it. They can file all of this and escalate it through the shipping carriers much, much, much quicker, because they can't guarantee that a container doesn't get lost or that a ship doesn't go down, whatever the case may be. But what they could guarantee is that additional service of, hey, we're going to be here for you after the sale. We understand that this is challenging, so pay us some insurance and we will make sure that happens. Insurance is another thing that should be seen as an investment, again, not just a loss.
Now, a lot of the insurance, from what I've seen from a lot of forwarders, it doesn't cover much. It covers very little. A matter of fact, you could have some major damage and they're always going to weasel out of it. Do you recommend having your own separate insurance policy? I'm trying to get Michelle Love on from Emford to talk more about it. But what are your thoughts on individual sellers putting insurance onto the shipment?
And that's an interesting concept, because I know even the major enterprise businesses that we work with, they have some sort of personal insurance on the cargo itself. But ultimately comes down to the Incoterms. So if you're purchasing it FOB, handling freight forwarding yourself, then yes, definitely have your own insurance on top. If it's DDP, which we offer all of our customers and
Just
users,
explain DDP.
Oh yeah, FOB is free on board, means that you're paying for the product to get to the port in the country of origin. So let's say in China, it would go to Ningbo. And then from there, you're responsible for that product all the way until it gets to the final destination. So your supplier, your seller just says, hey, this is the term. I have nothing to do with this order anymore. This is fully, you're liable for it. You have to make sure you have the right HTS codes, that you file the proper paperwork, pay the import duties, everything. DDP is delivery duty paid. So that means that your supplier, your seller is telling you, hey, we're going to be responsible and liable for this product and all expenses associated with it until it gets to that final destination. Now that might not include those accessorial charges, and a lot of times it doesn't, but that includes the customs and import duties. That includes, supplying customs with the proper invoices, making sure that they're legitimate, filing the HTS codes, delivery all the way to that final destination, whether that's an FBA warehouse or a 3PL warehouse, or a residential address. That is what DDP is. Now, I've seen too many times, and just a little sidebar, but I've seen too many times that someone that's getting DDP Incoterms are asked to pay duties separately. So that's something I just wanted to touch on. Never pay your duties separately when it comes to purchasing an item DDP. DDP means everything is included in that. There should not be any hidden fees. There may be some last minute logistical charges just because logistics are so crazy. You ordered a product 6 months ago, you're not paying the same logistics charges as you are today. So you might expect that in the DDP pricing. comes down to how your contract is written out.
Most people are FOB though.
Yeah.
They don't know otherwise. A lot of people.
Yeah, and so DDP is great for if you want someone else to handle all of the logistics for you. FOB is, okay, I can take the reins for the logistics myself. There's a learning curve involved with it sometimes, but it is what it is. It's all about what you want to manage and what risks you want to take.
Right. Just the simplicity of it too. So I know Afalabi, has some really good examples of, just using different types of terms and what you're able to save by using different terms. Like he talks about working with XWorks, for example, and just what he's been able to save people just by understanding what XWorks is, and then applying it. But anyways, all right. One of the other things I'm looking at too is working with a 3PL. So a 3PL is just your warehouse. Products are here, they're going over to a warehouse to be stored. Products probably going over to Amazon, or unless you're an e-com seller, maybe it's just going to a 3PL. 3PLs right now are very busy. Very, very busy. There's a lot that are completely filled. Are there any suggestions that you have on building a great relationship with a 3PL?
If you're starting off now, I would say starting off with a relationship mindset instead of a cost and transactional mindset. Going back to sort of what we were talking about, even with suppliers, I think that is just as important right now. So just like you said, every 3PL is, I think, the busiest they've ever been, realistically. I know we've seen the intake of containers just shoot up and skyrocket in the past 6 months. And so I would say build a relationship with them by, one, coming in with an understanding approach, understanding that, hey, if they're saying that they don't have capacity, it's not because they don't like you. It's because they legitimately don't have capacity. So whoever you're working with, finding out, hey, when can I contact you again? Do you have any recommendations for other places? I know 3PL is a great way to form relationships. Is also to give them referrals. So saying, hey, I have 3 other buddies of mine that are also doing Amazon FBA and they need cross-docking or FBA prep or fulfillment for their Shopify stores. So giving them referrals will always win you those brownie points with them. So those are just a few ways to sort of form a relationship with a 3PL. But again, they are inundated with requests. I know we've seen a huge uptick with just request itself. A lot of it that we have to turn down just because we don't have capacity in some of our warehouses for as quick as they need.
You can call me Francois.
I will call you. We'll talk after this. I will 100% send them your way.
One of the things that I can tell you about building a strong relationship is don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
So right now, a lot is out of our control or out of the 3PL's control. Because you might pick a product in 24 hours and get it out and meet Amazon's requirements for Prime. You can do it. However, even normal FBM, okay, so fulfilled by merchant. That's the way that UPS and the Postal Service is running right now, and they're delivering late. We're getting all sorts of late responses. So what we're doing is we're asking our sellers to beef up their handling time. So just put an extra 2 or 3 days in, and then that won't affect your late time. But then the Amazon sellers come back, certain ones, and say that that's going to interfere with people buying our product. So you have to balance risk reward. It's good. Hey, it'll look good when somebody goes to your site and sees that it'll be delivered in a week. You'll get the sale, but you'll get the late. It could be delivered late. Or if you show that it's going to be a week and a half, I hate seeing that, or a month like it was before. But at least people have expectations. You got to manage those expectations. And if you don't, you'll end up with a nice little message from Amazon that your account is at risk because of performance health. So it's something that you can handle. It's something that's got to be balanced. And I know just from what we see on a regular basis. We try to manage those expectations, but it's not the Amazon or it's not the FBM as of a year ago.
100%. I mean, it's to put it in perspective. Back in November, December, and I'm sure you saw it over at Honu, or at your warehouses over there. FedEx and UPS were seeing pickup delays for places like, I think it was LL Bean, Macy's. I mean, these major retailers that give them way more than enough business. I mean, that we're talking about the largest accounts they probably have on the corporate level. That they are telling them, hey, we are no longer sending, let's say, the 53-foot trailers to pick up those products because we told you these are the capacity limits. So I have a buddy actually at FedEx, and he told me that they went from, I believe it was delivering or processing 5 million packages per day to 25 million packages per day.
Wow.
And it was just an insane thing that we had to deal with here. And it was a challenge, I think, for a lot of 3PLs that we knew, that they were just not able to get those FedEx pickup trucks or those UPS pickup trucks anymore. So what, we try to get inventive, we try to get creative, and this is all about the relationships, right? For everyone that we have here, we try to establish as good of a relationship as possible. So we actually had trucks, our own private trucks, come in, and we were taking them to a few of the FedEx pickup destinations and dropping off 10 packages here and 20 packages here, and trying to work with the ship centers to see, hey, how many can we get in? But the biggest thing that FedEx and UPS see is, hey, we can move, let's say, 1,000 very small parcel items for every 10 pieces of furniture, or for any of the larger items. We just don't want to take them in because they can't go through our conveyor belts. So it's completely out of your 3PL's hands, but the relationships that you build with them, just like on the supplier side, determines how far above and beyond they're willing to go to actually provide you with this quality service that everyone should be striving for, but not many actually are able to achieve.
And we've got, there's so many times where you're set to go and then they cancel, set to go, then they cancel. We've had it where, we cancel, it was 3 weeks, just waiting, and then get this. So we cancel and we hire another, like a private trucking company. They came, they picked up. The other guy ends up coming at the same time.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Good problem to have, but
well, it's not a good problem. All of a sudden Amazon gets it. It messed everything up because the one shipping plan was canceled on the books. The other one was going over there. The one ended up waiting. The one that was canceled was getting received. They denied the one that was canceled. And when it did get in, they only allowed of the 750 units, 150 per day to come in. It was stupid. But from that, so Afalabi and I, we're trying to figure out, we're only an hour away from the one, EVP1, which is in Hazleton. So we're thinking, okay, let's just get our own fleet of trucks, and start just driving over. But try to get an appointment with Amazon. They don't make it easy, They don't. They don't make it easy.
They don't.
But anyways, that's another day. But Kels, what more do we have here? Any more questions that I can't read?
3 questions.
Yep.
I think we can answer. So Nathan, how do you convince suppliers to understand and accept small trial orders?
That's a great question, because that is the majority, I think, of the requests that we get. And it's really hard, actually. It's not as simple as, you may hear some Amazon gurus or YouTube videos to say, just tell them this and they'll give you a quote. Because number one thing is you want to establish a honest relationship with them. And sometimes that honesty comes at a cost, right? Sometimes they just see the honesty as, you're a new person to this business. There's no guarantees that you're going to give me any repeat business. So I'm going to do one of 2 things. I'm either going to ghost you, or I'm going to give you, or I guess one of 3 things, or I'm going to give you a price that just doesn't make sense for you. So that way I kind of turn you away. Or maybe it does actually make sense to me because I have to shut down a production line to produce your order, and now that's just more cost and more overhead for me for every production line. Or the third is that they'll see that as a start of an open relationship where you are being honest with them, and they appreciate that. It's going to be very hard to convince them, one, if you're not very well prepared. I would say if you come to them and you say, hey, I want this Yeti mug, and I want my label, or this is the ping pong, so a short little advertise for ping pong, but I want the ping pong label here, and I just want a clear top. They're going to see that as this guy has no clue what he wants. They just want some random thing. Why don't they just go work with a trade agent, right? That's sort of in their mind, from a manufacturer's perspective, they don't want to deal with that. So coming to them with very clear specifications, hey, this has to be double wall insulated, it has to retain it, the heat for 6 hours and the cool temperature for 6 hours, and the clear top has to be made of PVC, or hey, this is the one that I found on Alibaba and it just looks exactly what I'm looking for. So coming to them with these very, very clear and concise requests for quotes, I would say is number one, and that's what we try to hone in on. Here at Noviland, it's if you don't set yourself up for success, you are never going to be successful, I guess, with the sourcing, because if you're not prepared, they're going to see it and they're going to smell it, because again, you're not the first one to come to them and say, hey, I want to start off with 500 units, but my second order is going to be 2,000 units and my third order is going to be 10,000 units. They get that request all the time. So coming to them prepared is number one. Number two, you can tell them that you're open to pay a little bit more for those smaller trial orders. And if they take that as, okay, that might make sense for us financially, we'll give this guy a try. But also give them your background. If you've sold on Amazon in the past, tell them how long you've sold on Amazon in the past. What experience do you have? What case studies do you have of making products successfully launch? These are things that you want to give them information on ahead of time. Now, if you're brand new, I would actually suggest maybe looking at trade agents, not coming with a full custom product that you're going to have to invest, tens of thousands of dollars in, unless you have a very, very, very good go-to-market strategy. That might not just involve Amazon, maybe that involves Shopify, or maybe Kickstarter, maybe working with a marketing agency that could help you with advertising. But getting them to accept a trial order is very difficult, specifically when it has customizations, because they have to do all the work involved with ordering the materials, making the customizations, making sure that's the quality that you're looking for, and they run that risk, right? Anytime that they take on a new project, they run the risk and they accept the risk of this might not be successful, but I just spent my time where I could be using my time otherwise somewhere else, right? That's an opportunity cost that they take on. So you could work with trade agents or come to them very well prepared with your RFQs, with very clear quality indicators of what you would accept, what you won't accept. Don't come to them with a questionnaire of 50 questions or try to understand their full manufacturing process before they've even given you a quote. Don't expect more of them than you should expect of yourself. If you don't prepare yourself when you're talking to them, they will see it. So I guess that is sort of my my long form answer of this question. Norm, do you have any insights on that?
Yeah, the 50 questions, trying to be overly detailed, you won't even get a response.
Right.
If you're looking for a trial, they're not going to. It's a pain in the butt. They're not going to do it, and they're probably getting inundated with other Amazon sellers looking for similar products. One thing that I could tell you about, if there was two things. I'm old, and I haven't had enough coffee. But one of the things I was going to say is that you establish a price, like you said, and then you just say, look, if it goes well, could I get, can we settle back at the higher quantity? So let's say that this is 250 because you're ordering 100 units. But when you order 1,000, could they give you a discount off of the first 100 that they ordered? So they apply a credit to you. So they're looking at, okay, let's get the product out there. Let's see if this guy's going to work. If it does work and you come back and you order the 1,000, then perfect. Then they'll give you a better quantity break, or you might not get the full quantity break. You might get a small break. And that's the same thing with samples. So if you're ordering samples, sometimes there's a charge because you're going overseas and it might cost you $50 to $75. Sometimes it might cost you more, but you ask them to put that credit against your initial order or your second order. One last thing on that, I wish I could get our senior sourcing agent on, because she would tell you just nightmares about people that they know what they come off of a course and they want to get this garden gnome over here, but then they come back 10 times or 15 times with, oh, I got the quote, but what happens if we make the hat green? Or can we tighten up his beard? Or can we, and it's not, like you were saying, it's not detailed enough. Now, what I said before, I said, don't try to figure out the manufacturing process, but come as detailed as you possibly can about the actual product that you want, because the last thing that they want is that somebody's coming back and asking too many questions. Again, it comes to be the pain in the butt, and they'll just let it drop a lot of the times, or they'll price you, like you said, right out of the market. Don't bother me. I've got too many other clients that we see that a lot, where we try to manage expectations. We say, here's a list of questions, please fill this in. We give a price, and all of a sudden, okay, but what about this? Does the price include this? Yeah. You know, it's very tough to do, and it's very hard for our sourcing agent, okay, to go back and keep working in that relationship
without giving the factory back anything sometimes too.
Yeah,
it's more so just, hey, can I make this beard tighter? Can I change this to green? Without saying, oh, I really like these aspects of it. I want to keep these aspects. Yeah. And not saying, I just need this piece of information from you. Every time you ask them a question, it gets closer to the. We have a great Australian client, awesome company to work with, but they call it the THB, or the too hard basket. And the factories just start inching closer every question that you have, closer to that too hard basket. They throw it in there, and they're like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore.
Yep.
It happens.
Yep. We see it a lot. Yeah. So, all right. So we'll take two more questions, I think, Kels. Before we do that, just so we can get the wheel of Kelsey going at the end, if you'd like to have that hour-long consultation or chance to win an hour-long consultation with Francois about logistics or your supply chain management, just put hashtag, what is it, Kels? We love Francois. Is that it?
There you go. That's right. You got it.
All right. I got my coffee now.
You got your coffee.
All right. So we had a question from Brad.
Yep.
Read that since Jack Ma's disappearance, the Alibaba manufacturers have increased their product prices. Is it true?
No. I don't know if this is even actually a thing, or where they got this piece of information from. I know I have heard the rumor of Jack Ma just disappearing randomly. I've never seen that associated with the product prices going up. If I did see product prices going up, it would be for other reasons, like they actually want to work with more serious buyers, or they just see that this clickbait pricing model isn't working anymore, because a lot of times that's what it is. They start off with something like 10 cents, 200 MOQ. You contact them, they're like, oh no, the 10 cents is actually for an entire container load and 0 customizations. You start adding your customizations, you find out 10 cents plus 5 plus 15 starts to add up, prices you out of having any type of margins. And the MOQs tend to just keep going up every customization that you have. But no, I have not heard or read anything about Alibaba manufacturers increasing the product prices from Jack Ma's disappearance.
Okay.
It's going to be a Jimmy Hoffa thing, I'm telling you.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
All right.
We want Jack on the podcast. If you can hear us, Jack, reach out. We want you on the podcast.
All right. From Simon, are you seeing warehousing in Shenzhen or Ningbo, et cetera, or overfilling and running short of space?
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, warehousing across the board, I think, is struggling. It's not just in Shenzhen or Ningbo or our warehousing in California or Georgia. It's everywhere, and it's because the supply chain is so backed up. That's just what's going to happen, right? Inventory is going to start to be stored. People are going to be placing larger orders, putting a bigger strain on logistics, and then just warehousing, tracking back from the U.S. all the way to that country of origin, whether that's in China, whether that's in Vietnam, in India. I mean, I think we are going to continue seeing these warehouse struggles and this capacity shortage.
And don't forget, it's not only that. We've got a huge amount of new e-com sellers coming onto the market too.
Yes.
So we've got to deal with that as well as the existing backlog.
And new platforms, right? We have Walmart Marketplace now, and Amazon Poland is starting to open up. I think they just launched. It's new platforms are going to drive new sellers. New sellers are going to drive more competition, more production, manufacturing, greater strain on logistics, greater strain on warehousing. Just that domino effect you were talking about earlier, Norm.
Right.
Okay. Fatia is asking if you provide freight forwarding services.
Yeah, we'd be more than glad to get you some logistics quotes. Just go to noviland.com/solutions. Norm, do you provide freight forwarding or logistics management?
Yep, but we provide it, but we also promote our guests. So,
Well, hey, there's enough fish in the sea. We can help out a lot more people together, I think, than we could try to fight each other.
I tell people this that are competitors on Amazon. I'd rather sit on the beach, talk about it, and drive extra traffic. I got no problems. So and Kelsey, you can throw that in the URL into the comment section.
Yep.
Okay.
So, if depending on time, I don't know if you guys are good, but there are two more questions.
If there are a couple of quick questions, that would be fine.
Okay, so from Olga, should I assume that if I get FOB prices, all customs costs are included?
No. So actually, that's what we were talking about a little bit earlier. FOB pricing has nothing to do with import duties, customs codes, HTS codes, any of that. FOB is only they get the product to the port. So let's say they get it to Ningbo. Now you have to worry about HTS codes, customs costs, so do not expect them to pay for any of those for you. And if they provide you with an HTS code, which they may have those already on hand because they might be familiar with shipping overseas, make sure you always cross-check that. Don't just believe the first thing that you see because they may be misclassifying it unknowingly or knowingly, right? So always double-check or run by this trust but verify thing.
Yeah, make sure it's not an HS code. You want HTS code.
All right. And last one from Simon. Are you seeing a shortage of cardboard stock for packaging?
Packaging's tough. I mean, we understand that the manufacturing of products is having the strain, but packaging is just as hard because they have to produce it for all the manufacturers that are producing all these products. And if the manufacturing of all the products is increasing, of course, that's going to put a strain on the packaging manufacturers as well. To say that it's short, we have seen some minor cost increases across the board. There's also some new regulations that we've seen with PPE and markings that have to go on packaging. So some suppliers have had to shift packaging manufacturers. So if that's what maybe your supplier is telling you, I would, again, trust but verify.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we're coming to the end of the podcast. It is that time for Wheel of Kelsey.
All right, I'll start that up. So share my screen. Wheel of names, here we go. All right, can you see my name? Or see the wheel?
I can, yep.
All right, here we go. So 3, 2, 1.
Rad. There you go, sir.
All right, congratulations, Rad.
Rad, we'll talk. We'll have a chat.
Yeah, so all you have to do is just get your email information over to Kelsey. So Kelsey, it's just k@lunchwithnorm.com.
Yeah, I believe I have his info already too. So
all right, very good.
That right over.
Francois, thank you, sir, for being on the podcast today.
Thank you. It was a lot better of a conversation than I was expecting when it came to sourcing and logistics. I was a little worried that it was going to be kind of tricky, or someone was going to toss some whirlwind of questions in there.
Well, they just might. You never know. So, all right. So we'll get you on another podcast a little bit later on. But once again, thanks for being on the podcast. I really appreciate the insight that you brought today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Norm. Have a good one.
You're very welcome. All right, so that brings us to the end of another podcast today. Kelsey, if you want to come back on.
All right, there we go.
Okay.
All right, yeah, great podcast.
Yeah, I think
Awesome.
so. Yeah. Francois is
Yeah.
also, he's always great when we have him on. So let's talk about the coming week, shall we?
Okay, so I believe Wednesday we have Cassandra Craven back on, our social
From
media
Helium 10. Yep.
expert. Yep, so she's back, and it's on the tip of my tongue. Just let me check quickly on Fridays. But yeah, I'll make sure to put this in the group too. Let everyone know. Oh yeah, Brenda Ruby is on. That's going to be a good one. She's Brenda Mendez. She's
Yep.
going to be talking about branding and everything.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that
both
episode
of those ladies are incredible. So anyways, that's Wednesday and Friday. All right. So we're at the end, Kels.
Yeah.
So just
that's
join
right.
us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Eastern Standard Time, noon. And thanks again for joining. Welcome to the community for the new listeners. And we'll see you next time.
Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Lunch with the New.